How you doing, Cancer? I've been trying to do a reading for you. It's been like my third or fourth attempt. Celtic Cross. But I don't know. Things haven't been working out all that much in that regard. But I guess you want to talk. So let's talk. There could be a movement away from something or towards something. Something that was heavy on your psyche, that you feel like you're still carrying a lot of fear and resentment or baggage towards, that you're leaving a situation, possibly with hopes of something better. Maybe you were not being all that open with your plans, but plans are being made nevertheless. But there's still a movement regardless. Foundation is 8 of Wands. This is active communication, passionate communication. There's a lot of movement within these cards. This could be text messages back and forth, calls back and forth, emails back and forth. But it's like a passionate and quick movement forward. And you're moving towards something, but you're keeping it close to yourself, and you're not letting it be known exactly what your plans are. But you are hoping for the best, and you are leaving something that was heavy. Now, in the past, what is behind you, your creative talents and abilities. The Hierophant in reverse. This is someone who can be selfish or ignorant in some way. This is someone who can be controlling. The Hierophant is someone who is rigid, controlling, someone who is like some kind of a someone who lacks any kind of loyalty or commitment or any kind of higher learning. It's like even if they're smart, they're pig-headed to the point that they can't learn anything new, or they're rigid and controlling to the point that it is intolerable that anything could last in that way when it comes to a collaborative means. There can be an abuse of power. But maybe because in the past you felt like you didn't really want a traditional life, that wasn't something that you really valued, of a traditional idea of that life, because that traditional life, you felt oppressed in some way. And I see a very light energy where you like to stay free and unencumbered. And you have a optimism is of what is ahead of you in the future. And you don't necessarily think of the past or now, though. It can be somebody that can be quite impulsive as well. Or you could be dealing with an Aries. Someone who does before thinking, who lets their impulses, follows them first, their impulse and instinct, but hoping for the best despite any supporting evidence of that. Of wanting to live a unencumbered or non-traditional life. And you'd like to start off something new and fresh, because you're leaving something behind that you feel less than passionate about. And you want to move towards something that you do have a lot of passion about, something that you feel emotionally excited about. And you'd like to give a cup of love to someone, an offer about possibly starting something new. Ooh, very interesting. Now, you're moving away from something and you're optimistic for something new. You're moving passionately forward towards it. And you like to give a offer. Apologies, dates, let's be friends kind of thing. I don't know, but it's something light and then it's the beginning. Now, or it could be that you're moving away and separating from a situation that brought you a lot of burden and pain. And you are pulling yourself away from it, hoping for the better, because somebody here was less than loyal. He was non-traditional. And the foundation was passion. Ultimately, you want to start off something new. And what is just before you is that you'd like to offer your cup to somewhere else. Something that's more emotionally fulfilling. How you see yourself, temperance. You feel you are coming back into balance. You felt imbalance from this past situation, and perhaps was where all this fast energy was, to remove yourself or to keep yourself unattached or unencumbered. But you feel like you brought yourself back into balance from in the past that was really unbalanced. Retaining an emotional balance from situations that you felt in the past lacked any kind of organization, or lacked any kind of loyalty, and you're dealing with someone who was quite controlling. Could have even have been a toxic boss. I don't know, a toxic higher ups in some way, or it could have been a toxic figure within your life who was very oppressive and controlling. Maybe you wanted to control the situation. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's something that you're not emotionally connected to anymore, and you're ready to give your cup to someone or somewhere else. And you're bringing yourself back into balance. Now, whoever your environment, how they see you, the hermit, going within yourself, alone, single, contemplating life and the divine, your connection to the divine and the world around you. Going out on like a dark night of the soul and to find yourself and your connection to God. You see yourself as going within and keeping yourself away from situations and people that you felt have wronged you in the past, or you have wronged in some way that they're keeping themselves from you. But regardless of what it is or who wronged the other, there is definitely a toxic codependency within the situation. Possibly control issues, power dynamics, jealousy, competition. There's codependency, a fear of being alone. It's could have been dealing with a Capricorn. But it seems like there was a lot of cycles within your life that kind of mirrored the same kind of dynamic. It seems like whether you were getting in a certain relationship, friendship, job, there was always this weird control dynamic that was going on, whether they would be oppressively controlling towards you, or you would in turn be oppressively controlling towards them. I don't know. So maybe there's a fear of this, of being controlled. So it's like you would try to control the situation so much until it became oppositional and a lack of compromise, which brought about a toxicity and codependency. And you fear that your hopes and fears, the lesson to be learned, blocking your development. Could be a sex addiction, or a love addiction, or an attention addiction, or an addiction to substances or pornography. There's some kind of addiction here, or toxicity here that kind of perpetuated a really bad situation. It brought out a controlling aspect of the partner that you're with because of this addiction that you both have in some way. And ultimately, it brought out a controlling situation of yourself to be oppositionally defiant towards the situation. It became more like opponents rather than friends or lovers. And it just became amazingly toxic because you wanted a non-traditional life and you've both had different ideas of what you would like. It stayed together because of toxic codependency. But I feel like there is an ending to this cycle, Wheel of Fortune. I feel like there's an ending towards this cycle, whether it be this relationship dynamic, if this is a cycle of the same kind of people or situation, whether it's a cycle of life or a moment in time. There is a movement coming up. Maybe you are moving states or jobs, but there's an idea of wanting to reach out towards somebody, or somebody wants to reach out towards you, but there's a fear of toxicity within it, a fear that it will become toxic, and that's why you keep things light. Maybe that's why you consistently seek out people who are emotionally unavailable in some way, people who lived in long distances, or like have a crush or something on someone who is already married or in a relationship, or something that is like knowingly impossible to have a relationship in some way. and thinking that you really want a relationship, but the truth is you have a fear of intimacy in some way, and so you choose situations that never seem to work out because unconsciously you have a fear of intimacy, and you seek out people that ultimately can't give you what you want because ultimately you're afraid of what you think you want. So you unconsciously choose people that are not able to give it to you. Maybe there's a fear of intimacy or getting hurt, and that's why you try to keep things light, and you become quite rigid into what you want to give or people's expectations of you. Or maybe you're starting to no longer invest in people who have wasted your time in some way, which ultimately did bring you back your balance. Whether they cut you off, which ultimately brought back the best thing, is sometimes it could be a blessing in disguise. Or you block them off seeking something better because of the toxicity. Because if it was toxic before, it's still, I feel like that aspect won't change. And in order for you to reach your ultimate goal, good fortune and happiness, a new cycle is to start with something new. No longer dwelling in the past situations. Perhaps you keep a lot of past relationships or friendships around because of a fear of being alone. There is a fear of abandonment. And maybe this is the core to a lot of the issues in your relationships that you've had. Perhaps you had a parent who abandoned you in some way, maybe one of them, or perhaps even both. And you fear that every relationship is going to eventually turn out like this. Perhaps you've had a partner that was, like a chronic cheater in some way. Who lacked commitment themselves and left you behind and the family. And in some way you unconsciously recreate the situations within your relationships and constantly seek what you unconsciously are afraid of. I know it's a weird concept that we can be afraid of the things that we want, or when we really want something but we're afraid to have it. But it was there was like a lack of healing due to this. It was a lack of acknowledgement, which ultimately brought this back within your everyday life. And sometimes universe has a way of repeating cycles within your life, and whether it's not with the same person or within the same type of dynamic, it kind of mirrors back around between toxicity, codependency, narcissist, empath, or, love addict and codependent. But I feel there's kind of like a turning a new chapter or leaf to this, and you're done feeling left out in the cold and rejected, and you're going to start something new, and it's going to bring a whole brand new cycle that ultimately will be fortunate enough for you. It's like there is a need of becoming aware of why these cycles come about within your life, and why it is that you unconsciously set the stage for this, and how is it that you are showing up within your relationships that perpetuate it, whether it be choosing the wrong type of people, choosing relationships that, you know, like on paper is not logical. But I feel there's a healing of this, or an awareness to this, which is going to bring about a new cycle, something completely brand new and unknown from what you've known as love in the previous past. Definitely karmic. What goes up must come down. You're leaving towards a new beginning. And it's this karmic wheel about beginnings and ends, and even though it's a good fortune, and maybe you're because you have some kind of fear of abandonment, you choose to leave before you're abandoned and to start off with new cycles. Or you're feeling abandoned, and that's why you're going to start off with a new cycle. But until you learn the lesson of why that is, it's just going to be another repeating cycle. Because maybe it's a perspective on what you think a relationship should be, because it's not supposed to be all roses and happy all of the time. There are good and bad times, and maybe there's a lack of understanding with that, or a distorted vision of what a relationship is. That if anything isn't completely good all of the time, then it's all bad. And perhaps there's like a black and white thinking like this within like that Scorpio mind, where everything's black and white. If it's not all good, then it's all bad. And realizing all because it's new and exciting doesn't mean it's going to be new and exciting and good forever. That's when a new relationship or a new beginning becomes, you know, it loses that brand new lack of that lacquer or that shine, and you start to devaluate in some way and wanting something new. And perhaps this was a habit as well of being disillusioned when things aren't completely perfect, and you feel a sense of being rejected in some way, that there's no kind of staying power to the situation, because you do have this kind of fear of abandonment. And when you feel that you will be abandoned in some way, you tend to leave before that happens. And that's why you have this kind of fear of commitment, because there is some kind of root of it being abandonment in the past. And until this is seen, it will be repeated. New life. Something's unfinished, or at least you feel that something's unfinished. Maybe there's a need of not having enough, or not knowing enough, or a feeling that the lesson wasn't learned or something wasn't completely played out. And each time you try to have something new, it's time to put the repeating cycles to an end. There is a complete ending here of the ways that you used to go about things and tools that you picked up for survival that it's time for you to grow out of in some way and have an evolution. Because these past tools that, like these survival tactics that you've had in the past, instead of being something that kept you safe when you were younger, now it turned into something that would hinder you and hold you back. There's a need to be more accepting of love. And perhaps in some way you feel that it is that you don't deserve it somehow. Perhaps in the past you felt like you overworked it. There's a sense of not being enough or not feeling like you deserve it. And there's a need to give back to yourself and allow yourself to receive love. And perhaps the lack of accepting love or feeling that you deserve it in some way or giving back and nurturing to yourself caused a lot of inner conflict within you and imbalance within the situation. And perhaps this is why you've dealt with people that ultimately made you feel like you were left out in the cold, and ultimately what you unconsciously picked them for. If you're feeling chaos and conflict, inner conflict, it's time to give back to yourself and rest after this conflict. There has been some kind of loss, which forces you to have a new beginning. And it's time to start to feel a little more secure within yourself and what you contribute to the world and who you are and all of your gifts and security, to give yourself security and to not find it within other people, because this is where you would find yourself feeling abandoned or rejected, because it's security that you have to give to yourself. And perhaps you were looking for that security within other people, which is the thing that made you feel unbalanced and overworking and drained. And perhaps it's this insecurity that makes you seek like the highs of new relationships or people. And if you don't have that inner security with yourself, whenever the shiny veneer of something new wears thin, then the security that is always ultimately there after the high is gone will start to come up and cause the conflict again. And perhaps it'll cause you to overwork because you feel like you don't deserve that love, because your insecurity kicks in, like you're going to be left behind or chained, or and then it makes you feel stuck from taking any kind of chances to start anything new unless pressured to do so. But whatever you have been thinking about or deciding on, I feel it's time to make that change and to commit back to yourself and start to build that inner security within yourself and belief within yourself and what you have and what you can contribute to the world. And get rid of this lack mentality that you're not a lot, like you're not enough because of this past rejection. And perhaps that was the thing that held you back for so long, was feeling rejected. And it could have happened when you're really young, and it's that nagging feeling as to maybe they left because it was me, or I wasn't enough to be loved. But the truth is you were, and you are. And it's just the path that we were sent down within each of this lifetime, and our destiny and what we were meant to do. And how our karmic soulmates and our karmic partners that we meet along the way will teach us about ourselves and the lessons that we learn to shape us into who we are meant to be to reach our path within this lifetime. There's something that's deeply karmic within this. This is soul, this is spirit kind of led. It's meant to bring awareness onto something and to really reflect on what are the unconscious drives that make us seek out those decisions that we ultimately know that is not for our best interest or higher self, and that brings a sense of toxicity into our life. It's time to move away from that and become a little more aware of it. I feel that spirit came in to help you become more aware so you could get yourself out of this cycle, which is a lesson that was needed to be learned for a really long time. You're overworking and you are conflicted internally and you feel insecure. It's time to get some rest and to start building a security of within yourself and not with other people, because as long as you don't abandon yourself by not automatically deferring to what other people's wants or needs or expectations of you, but to firmly state your case of the things that you want and the things that makes you happy and fulfills you in this life and that you feel that is in your best interest. It's time to be honest with yourself of what you really want, and instead of just acquiescing to other people around you, or kind of like seeking out the new shiny beginnings elsewhere because you think that this is the thing that's going to make you happy, but ultimately it's going to lead you back into the same place until you could find that happiness within yourself. And the best way to do that is to go within, right? Because like Carl Jung said, those who looks on the outside dreams, but those who looks within awakens. This perpetual feeling of abandonment was to push you off of this edge towards this new beginning. And it seems like you were doing everything that you can to run away from it. But maybe it's time to get more acquainted in yourself and to start to love yourself and to realize that it's not the reason that you were unlovable as to why that you felt abandoned. It was because it was by karmic design to ultimately mold you for what was needed in the future. But I don't know if I rambled or if that's helpful or not, but that's what I got for you, Cancer. Feel free to like, share, comment, or subscribe. Donation box below if you feel moved to do so. If not, I still love you lots, and I'll talk to you later.